great team in 83. We had a great Maryland team. Boomer goes in the second round to the Bengals. I remember, man, he'd come back on campus. He's like, yeah, well, it's all right. And I always thought that was the fuel that fired him up. And it led to a great career in the NFL. WFAN's morning guy and our dear friend, Boomer Esiason, joins us now. Boomer, how much did that tick you off for, man? You went in the second. By the way, did that hang with you like it did with Brady? Every single draft, Brady puts up that Ichabod Crane, and he's sitting there. How much did that carry the fuel for you?
Well, Dan, it's great to see you. Thanks for having me on. I still, to this day, wonder what happened and why I did fall to, I think, number 38 overall, which was the 10th pick in the second round because there were only 28 teams back then. But you know what it was that I found out in subsequent years? It was my attitude. It was who I was as a player. You remember me in college. I was a pain in the ass. I was driving around in a big red truck with big old tires on it. I had Terp QB on my license plate. And a lot of coaches and a lot of general managers didn't like that. Now, a lot of guys wouldn't tell me that during that time. Of course, they didn't want to hurt my feelings. But as I grew older, as I talked to more people during my career, and then well after my career in the media career that I've started, or that I've had, I asked a lot of people, like, what happened to me? Now, if you remember, I separated my left shoulder in our Citrus Bowl, which was at my last game. Reggie White separated it, thanks to Reggie. I actually threw at the combine down in New Orleans. I was a loudmouth in the newspapers regarding Ben Bennett, the quarterback at Duke. He was an All-American. I wasn't. I was pissed about that. So there's a lot of similarities to me and Shedeur Sanders, believe it or not. I mean, I wasn't, having draft day parties thinking that I was a legend already. Maybe I was a legend in my own mind. I'm not sure. I mean, he's taking it to a whole nother level. So I can understand totally why he dropped. It may not have anything to do with his ability to play on the field or throw the football or run or any of that stuff, but it probably scared a lot of people from drafting him because they were afraid that he was going to come in and change the culture. And he's saying that now in Cleveland, Dan. So Cleveland got what I think they thought they were going to get, and it's going to be quite interesting watching how this thing unfolds out there in Cleveland.
So did it humble you then? And do you think that this will humble him in a way where, again, you had what probably really even put the cherry on top of the cake was you had two Terps drafted ahead of you that went in the first round that are our dear friend. Ron had a really good career. Pete, maybe not so much, but Pete's gone on to do great things too. We love them both very much. But again, did that humble you?
Yeah, of course it did, because there were a lot of people that were happy that I fell out of the first round, and it really is. I mean, you wake up the next morning and you just feel like you're embarrassed. I will say, to Ron and Pete's credit, they waited for me for our press conference at the University of Maryland, because the first and second, third and fourth round, fifth and sixth round, I think were in the first day. I think there were 12 rounds back then, maybe 14. I'm not sure. And those guys waited for me for the press conference at the University of Maryland. And the thing that I really felt bad about at that particular press conference was I felt like it was really about me falling to the second round as opposed to Pete rising in the first round and then Ronnie being selected where everybody thought he was going to be selected. So they waited for me. I felt like there was a shadow over that whole press conference. And then Pete and I went out to Cincinnati, and believe it or not, Peter King picked us up at the airport as he was writing for the Cincinnati Enquirer. And I don't know how both of us fit in his car. I don't know. I think it was I forget what kind of car it was, but somehow we fit in his car. And I said, I cannot believe this is the NFL. So the Bengals ended up drafting the guy who many people were probably afraid of, a real pain in the ass.
Well, I'll tell you this, that car must have been bigger than Vic Kronberg's car. So I'll leave it. Yes. I'll leave it there. So today is the 1-year anniversary of Barkley signing with the Eagles. You look back on that whole storyline now, and your takeaway is what? It's 1 year today that it became official that he is a Philadelphia Eagle.
Well, to his credit, he picked a better team. I mean, the Eagles are basically a well-built team. Howie Roseman has done a great job there. And they were missing a stud running back. And they knew that if you put him on the field with Jalen Hurts and those wide receivers and that tight end and that offensive line, he was going to have a productive year. Nobody, and I mean nobody, Dan, thought he was going to have the year that he ultimately had. I mean, this is one of the greatest years a running back ever had. And unfortunately for the Giants and Joe Shane and Brian Dable, they had to watch it from, 60 miles away up I-95, which was the ultimate embarrassment. And then, he gets to the Super Bowl, they win the Super Bowl. It could be one of the worst ever situations that an NFL or any team for that matter here in New York has ever had with one of their former players, and how they went on to go out and actually have the season that Saquon had. So I think it was a great move by Saquon, a great move by the Eagles, and unfortunately for the Giants, they have some egg on their face.
Boomer, you said one of the most profound things about Jalen Hurts when he signed that $250 million contract. You said he's got to learn how to play with it. And, it didn't resonate with me until a couple months after, and you start watching. Then the 23 season happened, and there was an implosion after he signed that. And there wasn't very much leadership at the end. And I think right then and there, we were all thinking, maybe he's got to grow into this. Then I'd see him a year ago, 2903, 2905 in touchdown yardage, 18 touchdowns. And I say this, that's not a guy I'm building my team around. But then you look at his resume, boom, he's got 2 Super Bowl appearances. He's won one of them now. His win percentage has been amazing on what you see where this guy is. I mean, how do you look at Jalen Hurts? I mean, is he a top 5 guy in your opinion? Or is it a distinction? Is it different? He's not Josh Allen, but what is he?
Well, he should be a 2-time Super Bowl winner is what he should be, because, he played a great game in his first Super Bowl and would have been the MVP had it not been for a fumble return for a touchdown in that game. So I remember talking to WIP in Philadelphia 2 years into his career, and they were asking me, do you think he can lead your team to the Super Bowl? I said, well, I'm not really sure, but I will tell you this. He's about as competitive a guy as I can remember at that position. So he brings a dual threat capability. He's had to learn a little bit more about the NFL game as he has gone on. He's had to deal with some unique personalities on that team. Let's face it. Fortunately enough for him, and I always say this about all young quarterbacks, really your development depends on who drafts you, who's your coach, who's your general manager, and what is the team like when you get there. So like a guy like Cam Ward, they're in the middle of a rebuild down in Tennessee. So he's going to struggle this year. I don't care what anybody says. A guy like, let's say, Patrick Mahomes, who sits for a year in Kansas City. He's got Andy Reid there as his coach, and he's got a really good general manager. They are building the team around him, and he takes over his second year. It took Jalen a little bit, longer than normal for him to be able to settle in. Had a little bit of a dip last year, prior to last year, and then came back up like a house of fire because he had Saquon Barkley added to that offense. So the situation for him to be productive and to be successful is there. Not every quarterback can say that. I think the Bears are trying to do that for Caleb Williams right now. And we'll see whether or not, the coaching change and some of the add-ons that they've gone through this offseason are going to make that big of a difference for that young man. I would think that it will. But I think Jalen's in the perfect spot, Dan. And he's turned out to be a really top-end quarterback. And like I said, a dual threat and maybe even a better thrower than we thought.
I'm going to give you a little bit of insight here, and I want you to tell me if I can apply this correctly or not correctly. So I asked Jimmy Johnson why he didn't have success with Dan Marino. And Jimmy said this: there was really a tug of war between us a little bit because I wanted to run the ball more, and Dan didn't want the ball taken out of his hand. He just didn't. I mean, he gave me a quote. He goes, and Dan Marino's entire time when he was quarterback there, he had one 1,000-yard rusher, and his name was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, of all things.
Yes.
I mean, it's the only guy he's ever had. And Jimmy said, I tried to tell him, for you to be a better player as you're going along in your career here, we need a run game. Dan didn't want the ball taken out of his hand. He's like, we were fourth in offense last year. What is he talking about? So Jalen last year, after week 4, they were 2-2, boom. All of a sudden, they took the ball out of his hands more. They didn't throw the ball like they did the year before or the first 4 games. He was throwing it around 21 times a game versus 38 times. And they ran the ball more because of Barkley. But there was Hurts going, well, I'm going to pull an Aikman. I'm going to do what's best for the unit. Is that how I should read that? That quarterback sacrificed a part of his game where a lot of guys that I know wouldn't. sacrifice a part of their game.
I mean, different times, different people, different situations. You know, I was the master of the play action pass. They took the ball out of my hands late in the '88 season, my MVP season. And, you know, quite frankly, I didn't mind it. I mean, we ran the ball effectively on everybody, had the biggest offensive line in the NFL, kind of like the Philadelphia Eagles have now. And, you know, we had Ickey Woods, we had James Brooks. You know, they obviously have Saquon. They have the wide receivers. They have everything. And by the way, you know, a part of that run game is Jalen Hurts himself.
Yes.
So, you know, he gains a lot of yards on the ground. So that's the whole dual threat aspect to it. I love the play action pass. I mean, so are you going to put 7 in the box and try to stop the pass, or are you going to put 8 in the box and try to stop the run? And if you try to stop the run and you run a play action, one of your talented wide receivers on the outside is going to be one-on-one, and barely anybody can cover those guys. So especially in this day and age with the rules the way they are. So I really appreciate what, you know, Jalen has done. And, you know, to go back to the Jimmy Johnson, Dan Marino thing, you know, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. I don't care what anybody says, especially when you have a head coach who has won Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys and had a Hall of Fame quarterback in his own right in Troy Aikman. And you're right, Troy did sacrifice because he had Emmitt Smith and because he had that big offensive line. Sounds a lot like the Philadelphia Eagles, doesn't it?
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, so it's hard to teach a guy like Dan Marino, who is so gifted and so talented and always had been the man and always had thrown at least 35 times a game, to be different. And, you know, maybe his career would have lasted a little bit longer had he really paid it, you know, a little bit more homage to Jimmy Johnson as opposed to always fighting him every which way on offense. But it's unfortunate that two guys that great, two Hall of Fame people in Jimmy Johnson and Dan Marino couldn't ever get their act together. Absolutely.
Couple more for you here. Boom. Jaden Daniels, is he the best quarterback in the NFC East?
That's a good question. I mean, it's a loaded group with Dak and Jalen. I'm not sure what the Giants are going to be doing. You know, they're going to start obviously with Russell Wilson. We'll see whether or not they're pressed into playing Jackson Dart anytime soon. I hope not for his sake. I hope he gets a chance to sit and watch, kind of like Carson Palmer and Patrick Mahomes and a lot of other great quarterbacks have. But I would say that he's trending in that direction because he's such a superstar athlete. And that kid can throw the ball 80 yards, man. I mean, he is ridiculous. And the way that he handled himself last year was, you know, a sight to behold. But now he comes back this year, there are going to be huge expectations. And Dan, all you have to do is to see what a quarterback means to a franchise. What did they just announce? A $7 billion stadium. Yeah. And that's exactly what they're doing up in Buffalo. That's what they did out in Cincinnati. You get that quarterback, all of a sudden, the entire political spectrum changes around that team. And lo and behold, they're going to have a new stadium, I think, by 2029 or 2030.
You know, I've been saying this, Boom. I wonder if you agree that if Dak Prescott wants to win a Super Bowl, it won't be in Dallas. It's just, I mean, there's just too many things that, and too much noise, just it seems to be around the program, where when Jimmy was there was one guy in charge of personnel. There was one guy in charge of hiring. There was one guy, this is the way we were going to do it. You know, the only person that he hasn't been able to replace, Jerry Jones, has truly been Jimmy Johnson. I mean, he's replaced everybody else in the room, but he's not been able to replace, you know, the head coach. Dak, him being back means what to Dallas?
Well, first and foremost, I like the fact I'm a Brian Schottenheimer fan. I know that sounds, you know, Dallas Cowboy fans be like, it's not a big enough name for us. But, you know, keeping the same offense, having the same terminology, adding a few assets like they just did with the trade that they made with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think all of that stuff is good. So personally, he's on a comeback trail this year. He got hurt last year. If he stays healthy, they have the potential of winning 10 games. I think their defense is going to be really good this year. So if I sat here and told you that they're going to win north of 9 games, would you be surprised? I wouldn't be.
No, I would not be. Boom, last one for you. Aaron Rodgers. I mean, how much damage do you think he's done to the perception and how people see him in the last 5 years? I mean, 5 years, look at him. You got 2 guys, Boom, from Green Bay. And as bad as the things have happened for Favre off the field, I say this to you, in 10 years from now, Packer fans will revere Brett Favre way more than they'll ever revere Aaron Rodgers. And Rodgers is the better quarterback, in my opinion. He's the better QB, but they're going to revere that guy.
You know, he and I have something in common. We both crashed and burned in New York as older quarterbacks in our career. So I kind of understand a little bit of what he was dealing with. So I'm not going to be quite as negative towards him. I know he's a very outspoken, very thoughtful, very deep thinker. I kind of like Aaron. He reminds me of my son Gunnar. You know, very bright, and sometimes when you're the smartest guy in the room, or you think you're the smartest guy in the room, it gets very frustrating. I think he really, I don't think he liked Woody Johnson at all. I don't think he liked the way that the Jets ran their team with him. I think he really liked Rob Saleh, and I also think that he liked Joe Douglas. I think he liked both of those guys, and I think he liked Christopher Johnson, Woody's brother, the co-owner of the Jets. But for some reason, he and Woody just did not see eye to eye on a lot of different things. I don't know if it had anything to do with politics away from the field, but it seems to me when he went on Pat McAfee's show and he basically said he had never been cut by a teenager, meaning Brick Johnson, Woody's son, that's when I said he's going to get cut and he's not coming back. And all Woody did was hire Aaron Glenn to make sure he delivered the message that you're not coming back, because Woody wouldn't want to do it himself.
All right, I'm going to let you out of here with this one. Tush push next week. Does it get voted out of the league, or do they keep it in for this coming season?
I think they keep it in for this coming season. I think there's just too much pushback by the teams that run it and are successful with it. And if I were the Philadelphia Eagles, I'd be like, stop it first before you start crying about it. And everybody's talking about injury and safety. I understand. Look, you were a defensive tackle. You know what this is like for you guys. Screw you guys. I don't really care. You know, if you got a chance to get your meat hooks on me, you'd want to throw me to the ground and try to rip my head off. So this is our chance to finally get back at you guys. So that's the way I look at it. I want to ask you one question.
Sure.
What is Frank Reich thinking about?
Okay, wait now.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, my dear friend, my college roommate.
Listen, you love him. I know this. Listen.
Oh, yes.
I asked him some of the toughest questions. I said this, I go, did the Eagles contact you on being the offensive coordinator to the team when Musmeyer went down, when Kellen Moore got the head coaching job in New Orleans? He goes, yes. I said, okay. I told him right out of the gate, I don't want to do it. I said, all right. I said, did they contact you to be a consultant? He said, after Petula got the job, I wanted it to settle down. We were working on a role for me to come back to Philly. They were working on a role for him. He said, then Andrew Luck parachuted in. I said, Frank, I need a favor. Now, I didn't know they had built this relationship up when he was in, because I guess the owner kept hounding Andrew on coming back, and Frank never hounded him. He just kept his professionalism. And he said this, they built this great relationship up. And Andrew said this, hey, I need you for 1 year. And he said that everyone else will do all the legwork. I don't have to do NIL. He doesn't have to do any recruiting. They're all going to do it. And Frank's running it like an NFL team. And he said, I believe he'll be with the Eagles next year.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing, man?
Well, because, you know, I had a conversation with Frank before he took the job. So he called me on his way back from Stanford and said that Andrew Luck called in. As you said, Andrew Luck parachuted in.
Yeah.
You know, I've reminded Frank that Andrew Luck parachuted out in Indianapolis. Oh, he did. You remember that?
He did.
And I love Andrew, and he did it because he was injured and everything else. So that's a whole different thing. But they did have a special relationship. He loves Andrew, and I can understand why, because they're on the same mental wavelength. But here's my question to Frank. I said, you know, if you asked him this question, I would love to know the answer to it, because he still hasn't called me back to tell me the answer to this. I said, you're getting essentially, I don't know, what, maybe $20 million over the next 2 years from the Carolina Panthers?
I think he's got 2 more. I think he's got 2 more years. And I go, why are you doing this?
Right.
And I mean, why are you not in the beaches in Carolina somewhere?
Yeah, but here's the real question that I have, and I still haven't gotten an answer to this. And I even asked my own tax guy this. I said, you're going out to Palo Alto. Where is that? Oh, that's in the state of California. Who has the worst state taxes in America for anybody making over, like, say, $2 million? Which Frank Reich is going to be making over the next 2 years, because that's what he is owed. Now, there's offset language in the coach's contract in the NFL. I want to know, has Frank's money
Yeah.
Is it open to a California state tax?
David Tepper's money, the $2 million he's making this year, comes off that $8 million. That for one, he's owed like 2 more years.
Yeah, I know that.
So this year he's got 6. He's got 6 instead of 8. And I went, Frank, wait a minute, dog. For every dollar you make in California, 60 cents of it goes to the federal government and the state government. And then you got to take the standard of living. When you're looking at California, you're bringing 10 cents home. I go, how does that make sense?
You love football. That's what that means, I guess. I know Palo Alto is a beautiful area. I've been there. My friend Walt Harris was the head coach there for a while. Went out to visit him right when their stadium was being built. And it was an amazing place. I can understand how you can get caught up in that, especially with Andrew Luck. And then he told me he had lunch with Condoleezza Rice.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I guess you're going there because you love football.
I'm going to tell you what they also did now. Because Palo Alto has like really a lot of land.
Yeah.
I heard he's living in a rent-free home out there also on campus.
Well, right now he's living in my brain rent-free because I still can't figure this out financially.
Wait a minute. You're not leaving your driveway for anything less than 20 grand. You told me that.
Well, it's more than that now. Inflation, even though inflation's going down, my inflation's gone up.
Hey, Boom, how long are you going to do it, man? I know that it's still the #1 rated show in New York. I mean, how long? I mean, you were made for this. You were made for 2 things, quarterbacking and this. I mean, how much longer are you just going to go until you go like this, until somebody like we used to do, until somebody throws me out of the league? I'm still playing.
Well, I left the league early. I probably could have played another 2 years, but I had another opportunity. And plus, I had young kids and I wanted to see them grow up. So I didn't want to be away from them when they were living in New York and I was in Cincinnati my last year. So, it was a reason to retire. But now I would say I got another 3.5 years on my contract. So I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
Good. By the way, that CBS show sucks. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
Yeah, Dan, I got to tell you something. While I miss it, I do miss it. And I love working there. Getting away from there and having weekends in the fall for the first time in 35 years. I mean, it was like life-changing for me. And I would never even think about, my agent calls up and says, you want to do this? I'm like, no, I don't. I want to enjoy my life in the off season and during the season, during the weekends, because I was working 6.5 days essentially a week for almost 23 years.
Man, that's really
it's crazy.
Absolutely.
It's like Frank Reich going to Stanford. Crazy.
Crazy. I hope I told him, I said, I'm going to tell you something. I want you to get one day, and I'm not hoping for anybody to get canned. I'm not doing this. I go, I'd love to see you as the head coach of Maryland. I mean, I thought you were going to get that job the first time around, and I hope he gets that up. Maybe that's what this leads to. Maybe that's what
they screwed him over. I was right in the middle of all that. We had I thought we had a deal, and then all of a sudden, it's not Mike Loxley who got the job. It was the guy before Mike who, the defense coordinator from Michigan. I forget his name.
Okay.
But he got it over Frank, and that Maryland went dark on us for a week. And I remember Frank was the OC down in San Diego.
Right.
And he had to leave a game after they played the Jaguars. He had to tell the Spanos family, hey, I got to go up and meet Maryland. I think I'm going to get the job there that next season. And I thought he had the job. His agent thought he had the job. Frank thought he had the job. All of a sudden, Maryland goes black on us for a week. And then they announced the defense.
I was on in San Diego on 1090, and he was coming on my show once a week. You want to hear this too? Boom. Nick Sirianni was the wide receiver quarterback coach on that team too. And those guys were all parading in front of me. And Frank calls me and he goes like this. He goes, I think I got the Maryland job. I'm like, he goes, Boomer's just all over this thing here, man. I mean, he's just absolutely going nuts here. And I go, dude, you're going to get the Maryland job. This is absolutely awesome, man. And so he calls me back and he goes, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
The whole thing just melted.
Yeah. To this day, we don't know what happened. It's now we're, 2 athletic directors removed now. I don't even know if we have an athletic director at the moment because we went through this whole fiasco with our basketball program at the University of Maryland. Finally, hopefully got that whole thing settled. I like Mike Loxley. Nobody wanted the job after I got to forget his name. I can't believe I can't remember his name. He got fired because
Martindale, was it?
No. It was Jim Harbaugh's defensive coordinator.
Oh, the guy who's there now?
No. Mike Loxley is there now.
Okay. No. The guy that's now in the Chargers. The guy was up at Michigan with him.
No, I forget who it is. Anyway, if you remember, an offensive lineman passed away at practice.
That's right.
And it was one of those, one of those practices with the strength coach. And
Yep.
And the coach was basically absolved. He was absolved from anything, but he felt like he had to leave because that's what Maryland does. You got to leave. And then they hired Mike Loxley from Alabama because, Mike had been on Freege's staff.
That's right.
So Mike knew the area. He's very well known in that area. He's done a great job recruiting, but in the Big Ten, it's going to be really hard to win more than 8 games.
Hey, Boomer, you and Frank in the elevator with baby powder on you. I'm not going to tell the story, so I'll just leave it.
It was called hazing back in the day there, Dano. It wasn't pretty.
Okay. Hey, right? Look, Kronberg, you, Koch, me, and Frank sometimes wedged in the middle, driving up and back from New York to Connecticut, down to Maryland and down to College Park. Those were psychotic. If I go, Boomer is in the car with you? I go, yeah, Boomer graced he graced his presence with us. He was in the car.
I was a mutant like the rest of you guys. We were all afterthoughts, Dan. We were all afterthoughts at Maryland. We did not have any 5 stars.
Oh, no. But we won.
Well, you know what? We had one 5-star, and his name was Chuck Fawcett.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because he played for the Blue Jays, and then they bring his butt in, and he played linebacker for us. But, yeah, get this. We may not have been 5 stars, but I'll tell you what we did do. We did win.
Yeah, we did. We did. Bobby Ross taught us well. And so
absolutely. Hey, Boom. Thank you so much for all this time, man. I really appreciate it. Keep kicking ass. My friendship with you goes over 45 years now. Can you believe that?
It's amazing. We're getting old, Dano.
You got it, man. Thank you, Boom.
See you, man. See you guys.
You got it. That is Boomer Esiason, our good friend. Yes, sir, baby. Oh, yes, sir. Hey, by the Randy Etzel. That's it, the UConn guy. Thank you, Arthur. Thank you very much. That's right. It was the UConn dude. He was a stiff. Hey, was there any supers that I missed during this time? Help me out here. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Any super, Xander, that I may have missed? Let's see. I bet you won't ask Boomer if quarterbacks need strong players around them to win. I'll wait. Boomer. Prince wants to know. If quarterbacks need strong players around them to win, please respond. Send. I'll get it back to you, Princess. How you doing, baby? Hey, Prince, I'm doing an interview with Boomer Esiason. I bet you won't ask him. Hey, I'm sorry if I'm a little distracted in talking to my friend. And bringing you Boomer Esiason. See, Prince thinks this shit's about him. Come on, Prince. Sit back and relax, kids. Smoke a joint. Eat a mushroom. Enjoy the greatness of Sills. Because you never get it again anywhere else like this. Sills, what's if Maryland's banning people from jobs associated with you? It's a funny place, man. I'll tell you flat out, Kyle. True story. My aunt hates it when I tell the story. That's why Boomer, if you could tell, was sarcastic when he said it. Okay? I would never have left Maryland for Miami. Ever. And by the way, he threw that 5-star thing at me because he knows that pissed me off always. I told you guys, not being a 5-star pissed me off. Okay? I think I was either a 3 or a 4. I may have been a 3. And that pissed me off. There wasn't anybody better than me in New England. Anyway, so I'll tell the story, man, one more time. Some of you might not know it. Prince is a bum. Prince is a bum. So I got in a lot of fights. I still hold the record at Maryland for bench press for a freshman. 415, something like that. I still hold the record there. Enjoy the greatness, you bum. Hold on here. Because you have to always have like receipts around this bitch. Sileo, Maryland. Yeah, I would never have left, man. I really liked it there. Plus, it was close to my pop. And I didn't want to go. I really didn't. But I had to because, at the end of the day, I threw a guy out of a window. And it was, the coach said you could have killed him. And he's right. I could have. Hold on here. Let's see if I got that in there. Let's see here. Let's see. Look at Prince, man. This guy's like a chick. Sideline Sills. I looked up your Madden rating and found that this player hasn't been unlocked yet. Hey, can you believe it? That this player who made it to the National Football League, this guy is a stiff in the National Football League. Thank you, Princess.